Now the thing is, ballast water this convention came up because you had in every area one of those species. Like one area had a jellyfish, but it was controlled because certain fishes were eating it. But then your vessels had come there, they had sucked the water, ballast water from there, the jellyfish went there, and with that, the vessel sailed to suppose some other country like Australia and discharged ballast. So the jellyfish got discharged into the sea, but it didn't have those fishes to eat it. So the number of these jellyfish, suppose they increased, and they created problems for the residents over there. They created problems for the fishery. They created problems for the industry because the suction lines and all were choked. So similarly, your cholera, your water flea, your toxic algae, your mitten crab, your Asian carp, your zebra mussels, your North Sea star, the starfish, then round goby and green crab. These were distributed throughout the world where they were not controlled. So they had an uncontrolled population explosion, which created issues for the countries. That is why ballast water treatment convention came up to control the species. Earlier we were doing exchange, but in exchange the problem had come up for the stability of the vessels, and a lot of vessels had cracked up because of the ballast water exchange in rough weather. That's why they have phased out ballast water exchange with treatment. So all ships have to have this ballast water treatment plant by 2024. Now, 10 billions of ballast water is being exchanged with chemicals, invasive species, and 10 billion gallons of sewage is uh, discharged annually, and 3.25 million metric tons of oil is annually discharged, and so many millions. So the oil is getting polluted all the time. Sorry, the water of the sea is getting polluted all the time. And we have a control of sewage by an X4, we had control of oil by an X1, chemicals by an X2. So what about the ballast? That's why the ballast water treatment convention came up. So ballast water, why you require it? You require it for your trim and stability because you're discharging. So you are pretty light. So for better stability, you have to take ballast. And then if your trim is too high, maybe 5 meters, then you have to take ballast. So your ballast will have water, stones, and sediments and living organisms coming through the suction pipe. And about 12 million tons of ballast water is transported annually. The ships carry about 1 lakh to 10 lakh gallons of ballast water. So with this ballast water being carried, about 7,000 plus marine species are transported daily from one place to the other place. And every 9 weeks, a new species is introduced in the world. Now, Great Lakes is 5 lakes in Canada and US. They are made of fresh water. And you enter the Great Lakes through Montreal by various locks, about 12 to 13 locks are there. So the ships which go there normally, the normal vessels which are there are known as lakers. So about 160 plus non-native species have entered Great Lakes and they are destroying the ecosystem there. And 5 billion estimated economic impact is of zebra mussels over the next decade. So you can understand what is the outcome of these ballast water organisms which are creating worldwide. So you had a D1 convention. The D1 standards were to exchange the ballast water in the open seas away from your coastal areas So 95% of the organisms were changed. But what about the 5%? So the D2 convention came up. There's the D1 standard of exchange. The D2 standards have to be complied by 8 September 2024. All ships. So the D2 standards were specifying the maximum amount of visible organisms, viable, not visible, viable, because you can see only in microscope. Viable means living, which can be discharged. Beyond that, you have to do the treatment. So within the treatment, the number of cholera bacteria, enterococci bacteria, those standards are given there. So all new ships must transform to come to the D2 standard. And until the date when they have to meet the D2 standards, existing ships should exchange ballast water in mid-ocean as per D1 standard till the D2 standards have been obtained. And over the time, all ships will have to meet the D2 standard by 2024. So your renewal survey is your IOPP survey. So what is the word due will be the IOPP survey, International Oil Pollution Prevention Certificate. Whenever that's due, that will be coming to. So all ships must have ballast water management plan as per the ballast water convention. They're supposed to have a ballast water record book, and they're supposed to have international ballast water management certificate. Now, existing ships built prior to 8 September 2017 must be D2 standards, meet the D2 standards until their D2 compliance has been met. So we'll be doing all this. अभी इसके बारे में पूरी डिटेल करेंगे. ये तो अभी आपका ये चार्ट है, बट अब इसके बारे में पूरा डिटेल करेंगे क्या क्या है. Now, in order to reduce your damage from invasive species, what is invasive species? That means they enter that area, destroy the ecosystem there, destroy the fishes there, and invade in the territory. You know that it has kahavat that every dog in the street is like a tiger. So any other dog tries to go in that territory, and this dog is the dog in this area is going to bark him away. लेकिन aquatic species का मतलब बाहर के कुत्ते अगर गली में घुस जाएं तो इन्वेटिव करते हैं. आपकी गली में सारे बाहर के कुत्ते आ जाएं और यहाँ के कुत्ते भाग जाएं, वो इन्वेसिव स्पीसीज वही कर रही हैं. दे आर एंटरिंग दैट एरिया and then nobody is disturbing them, so they are increasing the population in that new area. So this is developed by International Convention for Control and Management of Ships Ballast Water Management, Ballast Water and Sediments, and this was adopted in 13 February 2004. लेकिन ये कन्वेंशन एंटर किया 2017 में, 13 साल के बाद. क्यों भाई इतना टाइम क्यों लग गया? एक कन्वेंशन को इतना टाइम क्यों लग जाता है एंटर करने में? एनीबॉडी नोज? पहले ये बताओ कोड और कन्वेंशन में फर्क क्या है, फिर इसका क्वेश्चन का आंसर करेंगे. किसी को पता है कोड और कन्वेंशन में फर्क क्या? एलएसए आपका कोड है, एफएफए आपका कोड है, आईएसएम आपका कोड है, आईएसपीएस भी कोड है, लेकिन बैलास्ट वाटर मैनेजमेंट एक कन्वेंशन है, कोड नहीं है. तो दोनों में फर्क क्या? फर्क ये है, कोड एक गाइडलाइंस देता है, कोड ऑफ सेफ वर्किंग प्रैक्टिस. ये आपको गाइडलाइंस देता है कि ऐसे करना चाहिए, वो मैंडेटरी नहीं है। तो आईएसएम मैंडेटरी कैसे हो गया, आईएसपीएस मैंडेटरी कैसे हो गया, एलएसए मैंडेटरी कैसे हो गया? Because the sections of these were entered into SOLAS, which is a convention. और SOLAS मैंडेटरी है, तो एलएसए भी मैंडेटरी हो गया चैप्टर 3 के हिसाब से, आईएसएम भी मैंडेटरी हो गया चैप्टर 9 के हिसाब से, आईएसपीएस मैंडेटरी हो गया चैप्टर 11 के हिसाब से। अब SOLAS, बैलेंस वाटर अलग से कहीं SOLAS में नहीं आया, तो बैलेंस वाटर कन्वेंशन बन गया, इसका मतलब मैंडेटरी है। तो कन्वेंशन कब बनता है? कन्वेंशन तब बनता है जो इसकी जो एग्रीइंग पार्टीज, जो राइटिफाइंग पार्टीज हैं, दे व्हेन दे आर इंक्रीजिंग टू 35% और मोर, वो साइन कर देती है कि हाँ भी एग्री टू इट, तब ये कन्वेंशन बनता है। इसको अडॉप्ट किया था 13 फरवरी 2004, बट नंबर ऑफ कंट्रीज विच वर एग्रीइंग वेर मे बी 10%, तो 13 साल लग गए 35% को ऑफ द कंट्री मेंबर कंट्रीज ऑफ आईएमओ टू एग्री। आईएमओ की जो मेंबर कंट्रीज हैं 35% से ज्यादा अगर एग्री करती हैं, तभी वो कन्वेंशन इज एंटरिंग इनटू फोर्स, अदरवाइज पेपर पे ही रहता है। So the Ballast Water Convention began with IMO's Marine Environmental Protection Committee in 1991. Marine Environmental Protection Committee कई सर्कुलर्स इशू करती है ताकि रिकमेंडेशंस हो, लेकिन उसको पास करने के लिए या उसको कन्वेंशन बनाने के लिए 35% को साइन करना पड़ता है। अब जैसे हमारा लॉ इंडिया में कैसे बन जाता है भाई, किसको पता है ये लीगल स्टेटस के लॉ कैसे बनता है इंडिया में?
सर पहले राज्यसभा में पास होता, पहले लोकसभा में पास होगा एक बिल, उसके बाद राज्यसभा में पास होगा, और फिर उसके बाद जब सारे मिनिस्टर्स एग्री करेंगे, मींस मेजॉरिटी ऑफ द मिनिस्टर्स, तो एक बिल पास होगा जिससे हम लोग लॉ बनाते हैं। मतलब
उसके बाद एक और चीज होता है,
प्रेसिडेंट भी करेगा ना सर।
प्रेसिडेंट साइन नहीं करेगा तो लॉ नहीं बनेगा भाई। प्रेसिडेंट उसको ठुकरा सकता है, एज पर लॉ प्रेसिडेंट कैन से यू कंसिडर्ड इट, बट 6 महीने से ज्यादा उसको लड़का नहीं सकता। प्रणब मुखर्जी था जो लड़का देता था, हमेशा एग्री नहीं करता था, रूलिंग पार्टी का मान ले और साइन कर दे, वो नहीं करता था। बट आजकल जो प्रेसिडेंट है वो जैसे आ वो साइन कर देगा उसी टाइम, वो टाइम ही नहीं देगा, अभी सोचने का भी टाइम नहीं है, सीधा साइन करके दे देगा। लेकिन प्रणब मुखर्जी जब प्रेसिडेंट बना था वो टाइम लेता था उसको देखने में, दैट इज व्हाई ही वाज अ सक्सेसफुल प्रेसिडेंट। वो तो अलग बात है कि कांग्रेस उसको ऊपर चढ़ने नहीं दिए, नहीं तो वो प्राइम मिनिस्टर बन जाता। तो इसलिए मनमोहन सिंह को बना दिया सो दैट वो कुछ बोले ही नहीं। मनमोहन तो वैसे ही नहीं कुछ बोलता था और प्रणब अपोज करता था सोनिया को, इसलिए उसको वहां से धकेल के उसको बोल दिया तू प्रेसिडेंट ही बन जा। प्रेसिडेंट की पावर कुछ हो, मतलब उसका कोई से नहीं है, वो सिर्फ एक हेड है, वो साइन करेगा तो लॉ बन जाएगी बस। और कन्वेंशन में 35% मेंबर स्टेट्स साइन करेंगे तो लॉ बन जाएंगे। अब यही चीज मैं फेज 2 को बोलता हूं, उनको पता नहीं होता, दे डोंट नो कि कन्वेंशन में और कोड में क्या फर्क है। मैंने उसको बहुत सरल भाषा में समझाया, समझ आ गया कि नहीं? अब किसी को डाउट है तो पूछ लो। मैंने उसको बहुत सरल भाषा में समझाया है कन्वेंशन एंड कोड में फर्क क्या है। आपके कोर्स में नहीं है बट आपको समझना चाहिए क्या है, क्योंकि अगर ओरल में पूछ लिया या वैसे ही आपको समझना चाहिए कोड और कन्वेंशन में फर्क क्या है। कोई डाउट है इसमें तो बोलो, इसके आगे करते हैं। क्योंकि लॉ में आपके कई कोड्स हैं, कई कन्वेंशन है, तो आपको समझना चाहिए कौन सा कोड है, कौन सा कन्वेंशन है. Now the revisions were driven by advancing technology to remove unwanted organisms at the flow rate that would not severely impact operation. तो कई टेक्नोलॉजीज आई हैं. अगर आप D2 स्टैंडर्ड देखो, उसमें वो बलास्ट वाटर ट्रीटमेंट की 60 टेक्नोलॉजीज आर देयर. 60 टेक्नोलॉजीज इसमें हैं. So IMO approved Marine Environmental Protection Committee, जो MEPC है, approved a resolution containing a revised implementation scheme so that they comply with the D2 biological standards. D2 biological standard क्यों है? क्योंकि ये स्पेसिफाई करता है कि ऑर्गेनिजम्स का साइज क्या होगा और नंबर कितने होंगे, so that below that it will be clear, above that they have to again do the treatment.
सर ये डी डी क्या है, D2 डी क्या है सर?
अभी करवाएंगे ना, ये आपको बताएंगे क्या स्टैंडर्ड, वो आपको फिर रट्टा मारना पड़ेगा. अभी सब बताएंगे, एक एक करके बताएंगे.
यस सर.
अध्याय पर अध्याय बताएंगे ना, पहले ही तो ना आपको क्लाइमेक्स पहले ही बता देंगे. हाँ, पिक्चर का क्लाइमेक्स हम पहले ही बोल देंगे, इले भी क्लाइमेक्स आ गया, फिर पिक्चर का मजा क्या है भाई. So ships constructed on or before 8 September 2007 have to comply with D2 standard. तो जो नए जहाज हैं, जो भी 8 सितंबर 2017, बिकॉज उस डेट पे लागू हो गया था, मतलब इनफोर्स आ गया था. तो whatever ships built on or after that day, they were supposed to have D2 standards, which are the biological standards. तो D1 स्टैंडर्ड जो था, दैट इज बैलेंस वाटर एक्सचेंज, जो आप लोगों ने किया है, जिसमें हाउ मच वाटर हैज टू बी एक्सचेंज रिप्लेस्ड हियर. जबकि D2 स्टैंडर्ड था कि आपको ट्रीटमेंट करके कितने लेवल पे लाना है, सो दैट स्पेसिफाइड लेवल ऑफ वायबल ऑर्गेनिजम्स लेफ्ट इन वाटर आफ्टर ट्रीटमेंट इज देयर. वायबल मीन जिंदा. जैसे आपको कोवैक्सीन लगाते हैं, तो वायबल ऑर्गेनिज्म थोड़ा है उसमें. कोवैक्सीन लगाते हैं तो जिंदा वायरस को मार के फिर आपको डालते हैं उसमें. आपके ब्लड स्ट्रीम में मरा हुआ वायरस को डालते हैं और उसी से आपकी एंटीबॉडीज बनाते हैं. एक बैलेंस वाटर ट्रीटमेंट में देखना है कि जब हमने ट्रीटमेंट किया उसके बाद कितना जिंदा बचा, उसका लेवल वो सेट करते हैं. तो अब शिप्स जो थे विच वर कंस्ट्रक्टेड बिफोर 8 सितंबर 2017, उनका क्या, तो उनका ये था कि जो भी पहले बना बिफोर 8 सितंबर 2017, they have to comply to the D2 standard for the first IOPP survey after 8 September 2019, on or after. इसका मतलब सपोज IOPP सर्वे होता है एवरी 5 years, ठीक है. तो सपोज आपका जुलाई 2016 में जहाज बना, तो आपका D2 स्टैंडर्ड कब तक होना चाहिए? अब आपको होना चाहिए जुलाई 2021. मतलब जिनका भी सर्वे ड्यू है, अब आपका जुलाई में बना 2016 में, तो सर्वे नेक्स्ट ड्यू है 5 साल ऐड कर दो 2021. तो इससे पहले जो बना है, जिनका सर्वे ऑन और आफ्टर 8 सितंबर 2019 के बाद जो IOPP सर्वे है, वो लागू होगा D2 स्टैंडर्ड. And for ships constructed before 8 September 2017 which are not subjected to IOPP, या उनमें IOPP का है ही नहीं चक्कर, तो वो टैंकर नहीं है या उसमें फ्यूल ही नहीं है, तो या बहुत छोटे जहाज हैं, तो उनको नॉट लेटर देन 8 सितंबर 2024 तक D2 स्टैंडर्ड लगाना है। सारे जहाज जिनमें IOPP स्टैंडर्ड IOPP सर्टिफिकेट नहीं है या उनमें ऑयल ही नहीं है, जैसे यॉट है, अगर कोई भी आप बोट्स हैं जो भी जिनमें भी IOPP सर्वे का चक्कर नहीं है, उनको नॉट लेटर दैन 8 सितंबर 2024 तक D2 स्टैंडर्ड कंप्लाई करना है। So new ships must comply with a D2 standard. New ship means built on or after 8 September 2017. And they have to conduct ballast water management that meets the D2 standard from the date the ship is put into service. So the existing ships constructed before 8 September 2017, which have your IOPP certificate for 8 September 2019 and after, उसके बाद इनका D2 स्टैंडर्ड होगा। जैसे 2014 का 2014 का जहाज है, ठीक है, दिसंबर 2014 में शिप बिल्ड हुआ था, ठीक है, तो 5 साल IOPP सर्वे इसका नेक्स्ट कब होगा ड्यू? 2019 को दिसंबर में होगा, तो इसको मतलब 2019 दिसंबर तक, क्योंकि उसका IOPP सर्वे उसके बाद है, फर्स्ट IOPP सर्वे इसके बाद, तो वो D2 स्टैंडर्ड उस पर लगाना पड़ेगा। So for existing ships, this would be first or second 5 renewal survey after 8 September 2017, and the date of for all ships have been extended from 2024 to 22 to 24. तो मतलब finally all ships have to have by 8 September 2024 the ballast water treatment. That is D2 standard. So D1 standard तो आपको पता ही है। D2 standard specified the amount of viable organisms discharge, including the specified indicator microbes harmful to human health. These are usually installing ballast water management system. तो ये 7,000 species आपकी daily आती हैं every hour into ballast water, and this is affecting 2.4 billion people, and one new species is introduced every 9 weeks into an area, and 80% of world trade is carried by ships. So ये आपको कहा, ये बताया कि all ships must meet D2 standard by 8 September 2024, and all ships as per ballast water convention must have ballast water management plan, ballast water record book, and international ballast water management certificate. So आपका D1 standard क्या है? D1 standard is basically ballast water exchange. So you have to discharge ballast at a specified distance from shore at a specified depth, and इसके लिए आपका जो है your exchange should be either done in mid ocean or at least 200 nautical miles from shore. And at this location, the depth of water should be 200 meters or more. Now, when your exchange is there, it should be at least 95% of the volume, and it should be repeated 3 times. And the vessels must demonstrate high efficiency exchange to reduce number of exchange cycles. Ballast water exchange to be taken only when your weather is good, because you can't do in rough weather, otherwise the guarantee for the crew will be lost. You can't keep the crew in danger if you are doing ballast water exchange. But suppose this scenario of 200 nautical miles, 200-meter distance depth is not possible. Then you can ask the port state to advise which area they designate for exchange. And when you're having this kind of exchange, port state should not deviate or delay the ship. They should not say you go 500 nautical miles here and then discharge. They should not delay and cause a deviation for the ship. We've got three methods of exchange. One is sequential. सीक्वेंस मतलब सीक्वेंस में करो, पूरा खाली कर दो और फिर पूरा भर दो, सारे टैंक खाली कर दो और फिर सारे टैंक भर लो. ये बड़ा डेंजरस मेथड है क्योंकि अब सारे टैंक खाली कर दोगे, योर स्टेबिलिटी विल बी इन एब्सोल्युटली जीरो. अब स्टेबिलिटी बहुत खतरे में हो जाएगी क्योंकि बैलास्ट वाटर खाली है ही नहीं आपका, और ये अब सी में हो और अगर काम वेदर नहीं है तो आपकी बैंड बच जाएगी. So sequential method entails completely emptying your ballast tanks in coastal waters, so refilling with open sea water. And when you are emptying your tanks, you are reducing your stability. And when you are reducing your stability, your structural stresses like pounding will increase. Sloshing pressures will increase. Sloshing pressure मतलब छलकना. आप जैसे ही एक पतीला भर के लो किचन से और दूसरे रूम में जाओ तो पानी छलकेगा. So अगर बैलेंस वाटर में FSC हो जाए, फ्री सरफेस इफेक्ट हो जाए, तो काफी स्लॉशिंग होगी and pressures will be heavy on the bulkheads or in the tanks. So when you reduce forward draft will increase your bow slamming, pounding, that is going to increase. So margin has to be provided for stability and strength for all seagoing conditions, and this should be as per approved trim and stability booklet and as per your loading manual and load indicator. You cannot exceed your stresses in any condition. So sequential is discharge and refilling your tanks. Flow through method is filling and overflow. That is, you are filling the tank from below and overflowing the tank from top. Dilution method is you're pumping out water from down and putting water in the tank from top with hoses. So one is your sequential method where you're completely discharging and then completely filling your tanks, which is the most dangerous ones. Most precautions to be kept there. Flow through method is the one you see the photograph here. You're filling up your ballast tank, you're taking suction from down and overflowing your tanks 3 times the volume of your tank. Dilution method is not overflowing. You're taking the water in the tanks from top and pumping out from below at the same rate. So this is your overflow method which you normally do on your ships, or flow through method. This is the flow through method. So this is your sequential method. You are pumping out and then pumping in. Flow through method is opening all your tank dome and overflowing from that. Dilution method is taking the water from top, pumping out from below. So you make those adjustments how to take the water from top. The rate of taking in water and pumping out should be same. Now, what are your disadvantages in this ballast water exchange? The operation is very laborious, a lot of people involved, and you see here you're overflowing and very heavy seas, and it can break up your ship because the fatigue limit will be crossed and the ship can sink. So your safety limits have to be taken into consideration. So sequential method may endanger the strength of the structure and need favorable sea and swell conditions. Otherwise, we should not do. Now, आपके एग्जाम में कई बार आ गया है, what are the ballast water exchange precautions to be taken? Because you can't just start your ballast water exchange without seeing all those things. First is avoidance of over pressurizing your tank or under pressurizing your tank. Whenever you over pressurize the tank, that means you're overflowing it. The pressure on the tank, the water head on the tank is creating a lot of pressure on the tank. So long-term effects of the strength will be known afterwards. The cracks will appear there. Number two is your free surface effects will have effect on stability and sloshing loads on your tank, which are slack at any time. And whatever your admissible weather conditions, are you going to have a storm like we had, severe tropical storm, extremely severe tropical storm, which had hit Gujarat yesterday. In these kind of conditions, you can't think about it because then you are going to miss out your vessel only and you will not be there only. Number four, you have to do weather routing in the areas affected by cyclone, typhoons, hurricanes, and heavy icing conditions. Because here you can't have your ballast water exchange. Number five, you have to maintain adequate intact stability as per approved trim and stability booklet. Number six, your bending moment and your shear limit should not be extended, or you should not have the stresses going beyond your limits. You have not to stretch your limits. So suppose there is a limit for your bending moment and shearing stress, you cannot exceed it. You have to be within the stress limits. So for that, if it is exceeding, then you have to stop. For container ships, you have to see the torsional forces also because they can break away your containers also. Then eighth is your maximum minimum forward and aft drafts. For your stability, you have to maintain. You can't exceed those limits. Number nine, whenever there is a heavy wave, you will have a huge vibration on the hull, which we have done in vibration stress. So there you have to see your wave-induced hull vibration does not exceed the limits to cause resonance. Number 10, precautions is you have to maintain the records of ballasting and deballasting. So how much time when you're starting, when you're stopping, how many times you're doing 3 times and all. That you have to monitor. The records have to be maintained. 11, contingency procedure for situation which may affect the ballast water exchange at sea. Like if you have a very bad weather, or maybe if you have a pump failure and you started and now you have a pump failure, now what you'll do? Or suppose you've started off halfway through sequential, now you have loss of power and the generator is conked off now. Now what to do? Because the ballast is half or maybe less than half, or you're completely empty, now you can't fill in only. So what kind of contingency procedures or plan you'll have for that, so that you can counter it? Number 12 is the time for completing a ballast water exchange. So you have to see that how much time it will take for completing your exchange. And number 13 will be to monitoring and control the amount of ballast water, because overflow and flow through you have to do 3 times, dilution you have to do 3 times, so that you have to monitor. Sequential you'll be doing only once, not 3 times, but overflow, that is flow through and dilution, you have to do 3 times. So the first method we have already done, and these were the precautions for the first method. Now flow through method is involving a pump replacement ballast water into the bottom of the full ballast tank. forcing existing ballast water through the overflow or any other arrangement of flowing out. Now, in the trial, they have seen that once overflowing will not help out because the organism will be sticking to the underside of your deck. So they said, okay, by pumping out at least 3 times the volume of your tank, you will achieve 95% effectiveness in eliminating aquatic organisms. So 5% might remain. 95% will come out if you do 3 times. But in flow through, your stability will not be affected because you have the same amount of ballast water. So what are the precautions to be taken for number 2? That is the flow through. So in this, the pressure or pressurizing will be there in your tank. So your air pipes are not designed for continuous ballast water overflow because that is only for releasing air, not for water. So if you are continuing ballast water exchange for so many years, it might put a lot of pressure on the tank. Structural damage might occur in long run. Number 2, current research indicates that pumping at least 3 full volumes of tank capacity would be needed for effective when filling clean water from top and overflowing from bottom. That is, pulling clean water from bottom and overflowing from top, you will require 3 full exchanges for having 95% effectiveness of removing your ballast aquatic organisms from your ballast water. Number 3, when you're opening all your watertight and weathertight closures, which are the manholes, for ballast water exchange, you have to close every one, all the manholes, otherwise you'll have a problem. So you have to remember that you have to close all your manholes. Then another thing is, when you're doing ballast water exchange, you'll have a lot of water on deck and somebody might slip. So your wires or your safety wires to be rigged so that nobody falls on deck. Then you can have a problem of somebody falling inside an open manhole because a lot of open manholes on deck. So those safety precautions to be taken. And if you're doing ballast water exchange in the night, it might disturb your navigation also. Then in your freezing conditions, you should not do ballast water exchange unless very absolutely necessary, because here your air pipes and all might crack up and you will have a lot of ice on deck because you're doing overflow, and that ice is going to put a lot of stability, increase your stability issues because the weight of your ice accumulated on deck, so the stability might get affected. Plus you have to fit your load indicators to perform calculations of shear force and bending moments as per induced by ballast water exchange at sea, and bring it below your permissible strength limits. You can't increase your fatigue limit at any time because that will crack your vessel. Now we do number 3, that is the dilution method. In the dilution method, you are taking the ballast water from top, pumping out from below. This you have to do 3 times to have 95%, 3 times of your tank volume to achieve 95% effectiveness, and you have to see that the pumping rate inside the tank is same as pumping out rate, because you have to maintain a constant level in the tank. So you are filling from top, simultaneously discharging from bottom, maintaining constant level. And ballast equal to 3 times the tank capacity must be pumped through the tank to achieve 95% effectiveness in eliminating aquatic organisms. Now the dilution method has better advantages than flow through method because you are not overflowing and putting pressure on your tank. So you're maintaining a stable and strength, but the problem is you are using 2 pumps, not 1. In overflow, you are using only 1 pump, pumping in and overflowing. But here you are using 2 pumps. One is pumping in from those ballast pumps or fire pumps or other pumps or tank cleaning pumps, and pumping out from ballast pumps. So 2 pumps are being used. Fuel utilization will be more, wear and tear of the pumps will be more. But advantage is nobody is slipping on deck, your manholes are not open, and your bottom of your tanks, the sediments will be totally removed. All your ballast tanks will be absolutely clear with this because the sediments in the tank is ballast tanks are totally washed off in this method. So it avoids the use of air vent pipes and removal of manhole covers to discharge water over the deck. तो अभी आपको ये दिखा देते हैं, ये आपका D2 स्टैंडर्ड है। ये अगली बार पढ़ाऊंगा, अभी तो आप देख लो और अपने क्वेश्चंस करो। D2 स्टैंडर्ड बाकी चीजें मैं अगली बार पढ़ाऊंगा। CFU का मतलब होता है कॉलोनी फॉर्मिंग यूनिट। चलो ये बता ही देता हूँ क्या है। आपके जो ऑर्गेनिजम्स हैं, छोटे छोटे ऑर्गेनिजम्स हैं, अगर वो उनका साइज इज ग्रेटर देन इक्वल टू 50 माइक्रोमीटर्स, माइक्रोमीटर 10⁻⁻⁶, इससे ज्यादा है तो देन इट शुड बी लेस देन 10 वायबल ऑर्गेनिजम्स पर मीटर क्यूब। 1 टन में 10 से कम ऑर्गेनिज्म जिंदा होंगे 1 टन में। 1 टन मीटर क्यूब हो जाता है टन। अगर वो 10 से नीचे हो तो उसका कोई इफेक्ट नहीं है। 10 to 50 माइक्रोमीटर्स अगर हैं, then number of organisms which are alive should be less than 10 viable per milliliter। 1 मिलीलीटर पता है कितना होता है? टेस्ट ट्यूब में देखते हो ना 1 मिलीलीटर। अब ये होता है एक पूरा टैंकी, एक टैंकी में 10 से ज्यादा नहीं होंगे और टेस्ट ट्यूब में 1 मिलीलीटर में 10 से ज्यादा जिंदा नहीं होंगे फॉर 10 to 50 माइक्रोमीटर। ये तो हो गया ऑर्गेनिजम्स। अब ये जो माइक्रोब्स आपके बैक्टीरिया टाइप के है ना, कॉलेरा वेलेरा ई कोलाई, जो स्टमक आप इंटेस्टाइन में आता है, इंटेस्टिनल एंट्रोकोकी, इंटेस्टाइन में होता है। इनके क्या होते हैं? ये माइक्रोब्स हैं क्योंकि ये बैक्टीरिया और ई कोलाई है। ई कोलाई भी पेट में मिलता है, टॉयलेट्स में आता है। कॉलेरा भी ऐसी गंदगी में आता है। तो CFU क्या मतलब होता है? कॉलोनी फॉर्मिंग यूनिट। अगर कभी आप टेस्ट करो अपना तो अब आता है कि भाई तो बैक्टीरिया की इतनी कॉलोनी है। एक बैक्टीरिया नहीं मापते, एक बैक्टीरिया का मिनिमम माप है 1 कॉलोनी। तो विब्रियो कॉलरे जो कॉलरा कराता है, इट शुड बी 1 और लेस देन 1 CFU पर 100 मिलीलीटर। ये सब याद करना पड़ेगा। ई कोलाई है जो आपके पेट में रहता है, लेकिन अगर ब्लड में आ गया तो आप खत्म, सेप्टिसीमिया हो जाएगा। ई कोलाई जो है 250 CFU कॉलोनी फॉर्मिंग यूनिट से ज्यादा नहीं होगा 100 ml में, पानी में, सैंपल पानी में 250 CFU से ज्यादा नहीं होगा। इंटेस्टिनल एंट्रोकोकी जो होता है, इंटेस्टाइन में होता है ये बैक्टीरिया, ये 100 CFU और 100 ml से ज्यादा नहीं होगा। अब इन्होंने वो सब नहीं दिया कि कोरोना का कितना होगा, वायरस कितना, वो सब छोड़ दिया उन्होंने। इन्होंने बैक्टीरिया और इकोलाई को ही लिया है माइक्रो में। तो विब्रियो कॉलरे विल बी 1 CFU पर 100 ml, इससे कम होना चाहिए, या इससे ज्यादा होगा तो फिर आपको ट्रीटमेंट फिर करना पड़ेगा। E. coli should be 250 CFU per 100 ml. Intestinal enterococci should be not more than 100 CFU plus per 100 ml. तो इसको मैं दोबारा बताऊंगा अगली बार, आज तो अब इसको ऑब्जर्व करो, अगली बार इसको रिवाइज करा के फिर आपको कराएंगे D2 स्टैंडर्ड्स क्या है। तो आज की सभा खत्म करते हैं, ठीक है, और सभा खत्म करते हैं, और धन्यवाद सभा अटेंड करने के लिए। तो क्लास आपकी आज अभी 15 मिनट का ब्रेक आपके लिए, तो विल टेक अ ब्रेक ना।